Hi, I'm Ken Howard, and welcome to the Gay Therapy LA podcast. Today, I want to talk about balance and reciprocity in gay men's dating and relationships. So, in my long 31 years in 2023 career, in working almost exclusively with gay men and gay male couples in therapy as a gay men's specialist therapist and ASEX certified gay sex therapist, I've had the honor of observing a lot of dynamics that help nurture a relationship, as well as certain patterns and attitudes and behaviors and situations that can cause conflict or friction or discomfort or dissatisfaction in gay men's relationships. So based on my work with now thousands of gay male couples and individuals who discuss their relationship challenges, I'd like to share with you some of the observations I see coming up again and again. So this topic is about a sense of balance or reciprocity in gay men's relationships, a sense that you're giving to your partner and your partner's giving to you in reasonably equal proportions. I think because gay relationships are two men, the dynamics of men's psychology, gay or straight, and masculine points of view are compounded. Not with a toxic masculinity exactly, but just with how men, gay and straight, tend to function. So one of these areas we all know is competition. You put any two men in a room together, straight or gay or a mix of those, and they will naturally tend to compete with one another, like something out of the animal kingdom or a documentary you might see on the Nature Channel or something, like a chicken's pecking order or gorillas in the nest. So even with men we are attracted to, we still might find ourselves naturally competing with them, not for the attention of a female mate, as in heterosexual men, or even for the attention of other gay men, necessarily, in some kind of a social dating ritual, but just in terms of our sense of self. In general, gay men in relationships like a sense of balance with their partner, so that no one feels like they're the boss of the other, or they have the controlling share interest, and there are no double standards that put one of the partners in a disadvantaged position. When that happens, we tend to mount defenses about it. We react to it even unconsciously, but even consciously, and we're just not happy until we feel like the relationship is on a level playing field again. This is different from alpha-beta dynamics or even dom-sub or top-bottom dynamics in gay men's relationships. It's just a feeling that when you're dating, and certainly when you are partnered or married or living together domestically, that even unconsciously we strive for a sense of balance that preserves our sense of self, self-esteem, self-agency, independence, dignity, and personal power, in a way that feels like it's just part of the male animal that we don't really acknowledge or talk about often, but it affects us, kind of like the way our unconscious mind can influence our conscious behavior. So let's talk about a handful of areas of balance and reciprocity in gay men's relationships that I tend to work on with gay male couples in my therapy and coaching practice. So in no particular order, let's look at the first one, emotional investment. So in gay male relationships, very often I've seen a need in both partners to strive for a sense of balance or equal contribution to the emotional investment in the relationship. So previously in other episodes, when I've talked about the building blocks of sound, happy, and enduring relationships are commitment, communication, and compromise. It's that first part, commitment, that the partners need to feel but don't always get. There can be a sense of, hey, I'm in this to win it, are you? When a partner feels that his partner is not as emotionally invested in the relationship as he is, such as when one partner, even relatively early in the dating process, thinks of this as a serious relationship, while the other views it as just casual dating, there can be frustration. Talking about, hey, I'm super into you, let's move in, too early can scare off a partner. But if you've been dating a long while, coming on a year, let's say, sometimes less, sometimes more, certainly if you've been living together in seemingly domestic bliss for a few years now, if you sense there is a discrepancy in the emotional investment, that each of you are making, it's important to talk about why. It could be that your partner is indeed divesting emotionally because they are unhappy about something in the relationship or about you that isn't working for them. Maybe you aren't meeting their needs in some way, emotionally or sexually. Maybe they're mad because you aren't taking care of yourself, especially with a medical or other psychiatric or psychological condition, and they're frustrated with your self-sabotaging behavior. Maybe they're annoyed at how messy you get when you're drunk or high. Maybe they think you don't treat people very well. Maybe they are resentful that you aren't doing what they feel is your fair share of household chores, or contributing meaningfully, if not always exactly evenly, to household expenses. Now, I've worked with couples on all of these issues in my practice very recently. Those are real examples. So part of the work I do with couples in my practice is about identifying if someone is a little emotionally divested, and if so, why. Having the tough conversation, acknowledging that it's there, but diving into it and say, let's talk about it, let's troubleshoot it, let's find a way to get through it. So we look at what things might help to change that divestment in terms of discussions that need to be held, or behaviors or attitudes that need to be changed, or at least discussed or negotiated toward changing. This can be a component of both couples therapy or relationship coaching, but the approaches are different as they are different professional services that I offer. So let's also talk about time investment. Just as your emotional investment is a certain vaguely quantifiable commodity, so is your time. An efficient recipe for resentment in a gay relationship is when one partner feels like they are spending time to nurture the relationship in a way they feel their partner is not. The time it takes to do house cleaning or paying bills or tending to your pets or planning vacations or doing your joint taxes, planning outings with friends, taking care of household repairs, monitoring your bank or investment accounts, dealing with either one of your family of origin's relatives, or how much time you're spending just being together and enjoying each other, are all examples of where trouble areas can be that lead one partner to feeling fatigued or exhausted by just how much time the administrative aspects of a domestic relationship can take. In my work with couples, we discuss how each partner individually, but also the couple or the polycule, I sometimes work with polycules of more than two partners, as a whole, how you spend your resources of time, energy, and money according to your values, priorities, and goals. And this is something that I discuss in my book from 2013, Self-Empowerment, Have the Life You Want. The variables include how much work your particular household needs, how much free time each partner has, such as different work schedules or work travel, what skills or talents for administrative chores each partner might have, just kind of naturally, and discussing how, if it's not currently fair to one partner, identifying what kinds of changes in the behavior of just time management and time allocation would make things better and reduce resentment. The next area is money investment. Is there an imbalance there? So I've previously discussed how in gay male relationships your incomes can differ greatly. And after I first wrote a blog about this, did a podcast about this, I found it interesting how two of my colleagues or competitors wrote their own version of that blog addressing this issue. So it's fairly common in gay relationships, but all people, but especially men, especially gay men, have stuff around money. Because money can be tied to self-worth, self-esteem, dignity, and personal power and independence, which is something many gay men have vulnerabilities about growing up gay in a generally homophobic society. For a lot of gay men, their financial success can be a certain living well is the best revenge comeuppance to those who bullied you in childhood, but now languish under most conditions as adults. So who won in the long run? So when these sensitivities to money imbalances or injustices come up, guys can feel very strongly about them, up to and including frequent fights, especially if one partner feels taken advantage of for earning more when his partner could actually be making a more robust financial contribution to the household. When that partner can't make that contribution, either because they're just in a lower paying field or they're earlier in their life and career and salary history, or they have a modest position and are not a professional or an executive yet on the ladder, then both partners need to discuss how they can live with that discrepancy without there being resentment, and without the higher earner feeling like he always has to be the sugar daddy or picking up the tab or having a kept boy partner, or that the other partner isn't being infantilized or emasculated or parentified by the higher earning partner. We kind of throw around words like daddy and boy and, stuff like that in the gay male vernacular. But when it comes down to it, even if you have an age difference or an income difference, the partners are still egalitarian. It's an important, idea. So in sessions, gay couples counseling or relationship coaching, discussing how each partner's views or neuroses about money came to be and how they currently feel about their salary, their expenses, the economics, the world economy, the national or local economy, their financial values, their priorities. All of this can be helpful to discuss to clear the air. And some of this can be cultural from your family of origin. So again, you identify your behavioral options about what it would take to make this situation better for one or both partners. And that can be very empowering. It might take some work in having difficult discussions, but you don't worry about the difficult discussion exactly. What you're interested in is the peace of mind and the sense of resolution that exists on the other side of the tough conversations. So let's look at cultural observations. Living and working in Los Angeles and West Hollywood, I work with a lot of gay male couples who come from different races, ethnicities, nationalities, and although, I notice this in my coaching clients in other states and countries as well, I think there's a certain pattern of opposites attract in gay male couples. So I've written and spoken about before about navigating cultural differences in a gay male relationship. Most of the time, cultural issues work out fine, but there are some relationships where the balance of observing the two cultures needs work. For example, a Jewish guy might want to make plans to host a Passover Seder for friends. And if his partner is not Jewish, he might not fully appreciate the history and meaning of that, but he might find ways to support his partner's plans and help prepare. Or a guy whose first language is not English, but his partner only speaks English. The first partner might want some time to be with friends who speak in his native language once in a while, to feel that kinship linguistically or by nationality or culture. So rather than the cultural differences being a source of friction or conflict, you strive to create an appreciation of diversity even between the two of you and a certain harmony between the two cultures that you as partners represent. And there are just so many permutations of this, the differences that the partners can have culturally. Let's look at chores. I said a little bit about this before, but the problem of partners having complaints about imbalances in household chores and how they're done is one of the most common conflicts like this that I see in practice. Even gay boys usually are raised with a mother who handles household issues. So boys in general aren't all that socialized. You can call it male privilege and historically traditional gender roles, to keeping house. When I was little, my dad called it, that's women's work. It's misogynistic and it's problematic with gender roles, but it is how most boys, even gay boys, are raised. I think a lot even to this day. We're not quite as married to gender roles these days, but you still find that women in heterosexual relationships do the lion's share of domestic issues. If mama or papa is going to sew on a button to their kid's shirt, I bet you more times than not it's going to be mama sewing on the button than papa, even to this day. So when gay partners have busy jobs, sometimes especially what I call high demand, high reward executive jobs, no one seems to have time for the household stuff, especially things that can't be handled by anyone else, even if they're fortunate enough to hire a housekeeper. Who does what with the free time that they have is a common topic. I usually have the partners make a list of everything that needs to be done at home in the course of the week or the month, and then divide up that list according to who can do the chore better or who wants to, who doesn't particularly mind doing a certain chore. They like something about it, like folding the laundry all neat and clean and nice. For example, in my relationship, my husband handles things like delivering and picking up dry cleaning and more of the outside errands, while I have a background in budgeting and accounting from my work early in my career as a nonprofit organization executive. So managing numbers is actually kind of fast and easy for me in a household. But some chores like emptying the dishwasher or taking out the trash or walking the dog can get reasonably split down the middle. In my practice, I find that some guys have to talk about a sense of fatigue that they have. If they're burdened with too many or an imbalance of household chores, they just get tired. And then they need to speak up and say, I'm tired from how much I'm taking on. Can we rebalance this in a way that I don't feel fatigued? But having fatigued about everyday chores can also sometimes be a very subtle symptom of clinical depression. So this has to be considered and assessed as well. This is something more about a therapy thing than a coaching thing. But in couples therapy, if one partner is, say, struggling with a recurring clinical depression, it might affect his ability to have the get up and go to take care of his share of household chores. And then where does that leave his partner or spouse? So that has to be discussed. Also, let's talk about imbalances in motivation. So, as I mentioned before, the building blocks of a successful relationship are commitment, communication, and compromise. And that first one, commitment, can also be seen as just motivation to be in the relationship. Early in dating, part of the sizing up after the first few dates can be assessing if this guy is into it or not, or into you. Remember that phrase from a few years ago that was popular? I think there was a movie, he's just not that into you. That explains a lot of not being sufficiently motivated for a relationship to make it sustainable. So, good relationships and marriages require a reasonably equal motivation to be there, to have and to keep the relationship, particularly over the long term. Some guys can be ambivalent about having a partner at all versus being single, or about dating, or about whether they even want that for their life. Single people don't get validated for wanting to be single. There's this bias that you're somehow a grown-up or you're somehow legitimized if you have a partner. And it's especially true for straight women, but it can also be true with guys too, where if they're just dating and they want to be single and they don't want to have a partner or a family, they're seen as not quite a grown-up in their family of origin. I don't think that's fair, but it happens. So some guys can be ambivalent about having a partner at all, or others are adamant that they want a partner and husband very much. They want to share a home together, maybe even having kids together through surrogacy or fostering or adoption. They kind of want to mimic the family of origin structure that maybe they grew up with and they're very happy about. So it's important that at some point in early dating, each partner is clear to the other on what he wants. Similarly, in longer-term relationships, one or both partners can have ambivalence, and their commitment to the relationship can start to wane over time, which might make them unavailable, it might make them isolated, it might make them vulnerable to having an affair to spice things up. And of course, that can be really problematic if there's dishonesty involved. That's one of the functions of consensual non-monogamy, is to provide variety and fun without, knocking over the apple cart of the original dyad. So restlessness, or the 7-year itch, is actually a real thing, although it doesn't have to be the 7th year. It can be other years, 3rd, 12th, whatever. So when you have ambivalence and in the relationship, doing couples work can help identify what might be contributing to the boredom or the frustration or the stagnation in the relationship. There are many options for this, like I said, such as opening a relationship into a very well negotiated, consensual non monogamy, because often the boredom is about the same old sex over and over year. Or it can be a time for one partner or both to explore individual pursuits or hobbies. Or it can be a time when to discuss what kinds of problems might be making one or the other partners complacent. Couples can't expect, rom-com adventure film action all the time in life. Real life can be awfully routine. But you can guard against a certain growing apart if both partners are paying attention to keeping the relationship fresh. Gay relationships, I always say, are like tending a garden. If you ignore a garden, it dries up and it's ugly and twigs and doesn't look very good. But if you water it and fertilize it and repot it and weed it, it can be a beautiful thing that you get to keep and enjoy over time, like in your backyard. Let's look at social imbalance. This is perhaps a less frequently seen imbalance problem that I see in relationship, but it certainly happens. I've worked with guys on this. One partner or the other can have the larger proportion of the friends the couple has. For example, if they should ever break up, it's kind of a joke about, okay, in the divorce, who gets the friends? Sometimes the partners need to discuss how much time they're spending with partner A's friends, partner B's friends, or the friends that they have made together who relate to them collectively as a couple. So if partner A gets resentful that they're spending too much time with only partner B's friends, this might take some discussion about how they can adjust their social calendar. Again, allocating your time according to your values, priorities, and goals to make it feel more egalitarian. Even if sometimes your partner doesn't like your friends, they kind of have to suck it up and be nice because their partner is friends with those people. So I've also worked with guys on balancing how much time they are known socially as a couple, like one merged social unit, versus the need for individual partners to each have time with their own friends outside of socializing as a couple. For example, if partner A is a musician but partner B is not, partner A might want a friend or two who are also musicians so that they can relate on that level apart from partner B. And maybe partner B has his own individual interest or identity like that, and that's not really a threat to the relationship. It's just that partner B might want some time communing with other people and other friends who share an interest that partner A doesn't share with him. So having some time individually apart can prevent a kind of enmeshment or codependence in the relationship without risking estrangement. So you have a balance there. Let's talk about the balance of caretaking. One of the more really super serious topics in relationships, especially as you get older, can be the issue of caretaking when your partner is sick. Things happen. This is not so much an issue if both partners are really young and vibrant and especially healthy and athletic and things aren't really happening to you, but anywhere into middle age can easily bring a situation where your partner needs to, in essence, nurse you back to health. So many gay men were so profoundly and nobly in this role during the height of the AIDS crisis, taking care of partners sometimes for many months who ultimately weakened and died from AIDS. Thousands upon thousands of examples of gay male couples who were in that situation. A couple of years ago, I was severely ill with a staph infection in my lower left leg that I'm pretty sure I picked up at a gym in West Hollywood. I was in the hospital for 10 days and I almost died. And when I was released, I had a home nurse for another week, and she had to train my husband on how to give intravenous antibiotic infusions every 8 hours around the clock until I got better. And I couldn't walk for weeks, and I had to have physical therapy over about another 4 weeks to learn how to walk again. And my husband had to bring me my meals when I was sitting down in bed or on the couch, as I couldn't stand for long periods of time to make food. And I used a walker just to get to the bathroom and back. So that's real heroism from a partner. And when he's been sick, I've brought him meals or picked up prescriptions or cooked or just handled things around the house until he's better. We've had lots of back and forth about being in the role of caretaker for the other. And for some gay couples, this is a chronic condition or an issue in aging. Sometimes the most profound consideration that you can give yourself when you're contemplating moving in or marrying someone is asking yourself if this guy has the wherewithal or the character to, if needed, be a caretaker for you or you for him. Can you make that kind of commitment, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health? It should feel like it's reasonably reciprocal. If you think you couldn't count on this guy in an emergency like that, you need to discuss that, because I believe that can be a deal breaker in relationships. I've learned from tough experience that this is critical in relationships, especially over the long term. Let's look at being out and proud. I've also worked with gay couples on the issue of how relatively out of the closet they are. When one partner is out and proud in all settings, such as with their family of origin or their workplace, and the other partner is not, this can and often does create friction. It's because the out partner can feel like his partner is keeping him as his dirty little secret and is accommodating the homophobia and bigotry of his parents or his bosses, rather than being proud that his partner is, well, his partner. It can feel invalidating or demeaning to have to hide your life together. The other partner might feel afraid of being disinherited by his parents or shut out of the family business or being fired, whether it's legal or not, from their job, or being ostracized from a community, such as Mormons with excommunication. Another area is family integration. One of the nicest phenomena that I've experienced in my own relationship, which is now 21 years in 2023, has been the integration of my husband with my family of origin and my integration with his. He has 2 gay brothers, 1 straight sister, and 1 straight brother. Fortunately, I come from a reasonably progressive urban suburban family. My niece is trans, but it took some negotiating and wrangling to get my father, when he was alive, to accept my husband. And he did eventually come around. I think that's another topic of discussion of how that happened. But over time and over persistence, they became integrated in a sense of family, despite his being an extremely conservative person. But when this is not the case, when your partner's family of origin is somehow rejecting or demeaning of you, I helped a couple with this exact thing very recently, it is fair to express your feelings about what you expect your partner to do to set limits with his family, especially his parents, and demonstrate his loyalty to you as a grown-up. It's certainly what a straight guy would do to defend his wife. And if a guy is struggling with being out, especially the layers of that, like he's out to friends but not to family, or to family but not to work, that sometimes requires his individual therapy to build up the confidence and a sense of self that's also in the context of his relationship, and how his own journey of being out actually affects his partner, not just him. It's a joint growth, and it's a joint challenge. So this can be a stress that gay male relationships have that straight ones don't, which is one of the things that we mean when we say minority stress or even heterosexual privilege. They don't have to worry about that stuff. So, in conclusion, I think there's certainly other areas of imbalance in gay male relationships that need attention and intervention from a professional, but these are some of the ones that I've seen the most frequently in my practice. The idea of balance, sharing, communing, and living in relative harmony is a goal of relationships at any age, at any stage of the relationship, and any place around the world. I'm aware that this show is heard in so many countries of the world, and I really appreciate that. And I hope you can share it, because it's my hope that some of these ideas, especially if you find them helpful, can be spread out to anyone that you think might benefit. So please feel free to recommend the show to others if you think they might get benefit from it. But the point of a relationship is not losing yourself completely, but just joining, so that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. There's partner A, there's partner B, and there's the wonderful, let's say, component C, that is the relationship that is formed from your respective contributions, which can be very, very rewarding in the course of life. But if you feel you have imbalances in your relationship, or if you have any other kind of challenge, a mental health challenge, or other relationship challenge, career, I help guys with all of that in a gay male affirmative context. So please consider therapy. If you're a resident of California, where I'm licensed, I work by telehealth, so you can be anywhere in California. Or coaching, life, career, relationship, executive, and healthy aging, if you're in another state or even another country. And we just kind of figure out the time zones. That's always fun, figuring out what time it is in my office in Los Angeles versus what time it is for you, and sometimes the other side of the world, but we'll figure it out. I'd be happy to help. So call or text in the United States 310-339-5778. They always say repeat that. So 310-339-5778. Or you can email me, ken@gaytherapyla.com, and I can explain how to get started. So I hope you found this helpful. If you have ideas for other episodes that you'd like to see me cover, please feel free to let me know, and I'll try to work those in future episodes. Thanks, and I'll see you next time.